Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Connie.
So
How
what
are
do you
you
want
today?
for your birthday? What's
What?
your birthday wish?
Good health right now. Good
Okay.
health. Hi, Jeff.
Hello. How is everybody?
Good. Your eye looks good, Connie.
I am healing up.
Wait, is that Mike Harmon?
Yes,
The man who couldn't be here?
I got a substitute for my other meeting.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's
Well,
our
I
NEA,
feel very special. Thank you,
it's our
Mike.
NEA board meeting today. So normally I'd be in DC right now,
Yeah.
but I got Heidi to cover that for the first 2 hours. So here I am. Because I had to come and wish Connie happy birthday in person.
Mhm.
Connie,
Thanks, Mike.
happy birthday. That's fantastic. How does it
This
feel
is
to be
also
25
recorded.
again?
Mhm. It feels good. Hilda just had a birthday too. Hilda and I are the same age.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Oh, did you, Hilda?
Happy birthday, Hilda. I didn't
Happy
know.
birthday,
Today's April
Hilda.
18th.
Nice. We should have cake for your birthdays.
We totally should. What are you eating,
You
Mike?
guys, I have
A banana.
Ooh, banana cake sounds good.
Right? That would be delicious.
Yeah.
That
With
would
cream
be.
cheese frosting.
Ooh, like a banana Foster's cake.
There you go.
Hey, I haven't ate lunch, so let's don't talk about food.
Well, I didn't eat lunch either yet, so don't feel bad. We'll get through this quick so you can have lunch. How's that?
Perfect.
All right, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. It's so nice to see the people that I can see. Thanks for meeting us. I know that you guys are bouncing from meetings to meetings and trying to get work done. So I sincerely appreciate the effort that you guys make to meet with us here. There's quite a bit going on. Not a lot of, not as much info as I would like to give you, but it certainly is kind of a crazy time for us in McKinney Vento. So I'm really happy to see all of you, and please feel free to ask questions as we go along. Um, I don't have any slides for you. I didn't want to put you guys through that where you're just looking at a screen and just looking at text. Not that I'm any particular special brand of nice to look at, but at least I'm moving. So there's that. um, so thank you for meeting with me today. I certainly appreciate that. I wanted to talk first about funding because I know that's obviously important to you guys. Oh, and I think I made an error in my last meeting. So McKinney Vento funds are in a 3-year cycle. The cycle ends this year, which means that applications will be coming out to you next week. You'll be getting those via email. They'll be sent to your federal programs director as well later in the day, that same day that you get it, because we want to make sure that they're aware that that's happening. But we definitely want you guys to see it first, because really you guys are the ones that end up filling it out anyway. Let's be honest. They just send it back to you, fill it out, and then submit it for you. So those applications will be going out to you on Monday. So we don't have funding allocations for you yet because we don't know who's going to be applying. But once you do apply, those funds will remain consistent throughout the following 3 years. And then again, application time comes at the end of those 3 years. They will be due on June 1st. So make sure that you have them submitted before then, as soon as you can, preferably. But that gives you about a month to take care of it. If you have any questions or anything that you want to get clarified during that time, please feel free to reach out to me or reach out to Renee. We'll do the best to answer you as quickly as possible so that you guys don't have to sit around waiting for a response. But the idea is that we'll have them done, we'll have them submitted in by June 1st so that we can go through them during the month of June. And then come July, at the start of July, we have your allocation set for you so you know what that's going to be for the next 3 years. Okay. But please keep an eye out for that. Again, we'll send it to you via email. and then we'll go from there. Okay? Any questions about that you might have? No? Okay, so the other part of funding that we need to talk about is this huge chunk of money that the federal government is giving us. At the start of this week, there was very little talked about. Now that we're on Friday, there's been a lot talked about and very little done. But we are in the starting process of that. So for those of you that haven't heard, let me explain. Okay, as part of COVID funding or trying to reset things in the economy and help out students who really have been at risk and haven't had an education like they could have this past year because of all of the COVID stuff going on. The U.S. Department of Ed set aside $800 million in funding for homelessness specifically, and to meet the needs of homeless kids in the nation. As part of that, they went through all kinds of formulas that the government makes that are especially complicated so that we don't know what it is. But it turns out that we end up with $4 million of that $800 million. We don't get all of that at once. We have just recently received $1,080 and something like 60 cents on top of that. So literally it's $1 million that we received that will be going out to help support our homeless students in the state. Now, the important part to that, and the part that I'm sure you all want to know about, is how you get those funds. The reality and the response to that is that we do not know yet. And the reason for that is because the state of Utah has to supply the U.S. Department of Ed with a plan on how we as a state will be using those funds so that they become free for us to use. And that plan hasn't been written yet. That plan is being written by someone above me in state leadership. And that plan is being put together. I have been asked to be a part of that process, which I'm really grateful for, because they could have done it without consulting anybody in McKinney. But thankfully they chose to do that, which is great. Which means I will be reaching out to you guys with questions as we go through the process. That process hasn't happened yet, but it does have a timeline because the states have to turn in their plan by June 7th in order to be able to access those funds. Our plan as a state is to turn that in on June 4th. So we'll turn it in a couple of days before the deadline, but we are bringing people to the table. So if you get an email from me asking you to participate in a meeting in regards to funding, you'll know that is the case. Okay, I don't know, or excuse me, that's what I'm bringing you into. That's the conversation that I'm asking you to be a part of. I don't know when those will happen yet. I just received an email yesterday from our state superintendent saying that this plan was to be written by someone in our office, and it listed a host of people that were a part of that conversation. I, as I mentioned before, am a part of that conversation, so I'm grateful for that. But we don't have an overall plan yet of when we're meeting and when those will take place. So if I do ask you a question via email or by text, just know that it would be timely if it's in regards to that. So if you could get back to me as soon as you can, that would be great. Because that will be another way for me to kind of get some input and some feedback from you guys. I definitely want that from you so that we can make sure that the plan is to your benefit, not just to the state and receiving those funds. Okay. Do you guys have any questions about that? That's as much as I know at the moment. The more that I know, I will certainly let you guys know so you know what the process is and how things are going. But up until yesterday, I had no idea of how the state was going to tackle that. So I'm just informing you of what I know at the moment. And again, I'll be keeping you informed. Because of this process and because of kind of the stuff that's going to be required for it. I plan on sending you guys an email from me or from Renee probably once a week that just kind of gives you an update and then has some additional information of what may be going on. I just want you guys to feel like you're a part of it and are in the loop of what's going on as well, because I know you might have people asking you about it in your positions, and I don't want you to feel like you have no idea. So that's as much as I know. Anybody have any questions or anything that you want me to look into that I haven't said already? No? Okay. Well, with that then, let me open things up and ask for some feedback from you guys. We've been through a year now of COVID and things closing and schools opening and closing, and you guys working from home and working from the office and bouncing back and forth and going to hopefully not as crazy as I've had to go through, but hope you guys are doing well. Tell me about your experiences. What has that been like for you guys so far?
I'll start.
Thanks, Mike.
So our district remained completely remote for the first till March.
Yeah.
So it was certainly a challenge to try and identify those students. Many of them either weren't registered or were registered but weren't identified as McKinney. Or the ones who were identified didn't have the resources. So I spent the first couple months just making sure they had internet and things. We also had a number of students that were dropped because of non-attendance. So I took the McKinney list from last year and the students who got dropped to the first of the year and went and tried to locate those kids to make sure that they hadn't moved, and a lot of them were around. They just hadn't registered because they heard schools were closed or whatever.
Right.
So we got some of those kids in. Of course, our numbers are still down this year. They're down. Enrollment's down as a district. Our McKinney numbers are down. I don't think it's because they're not McKinney. I think it's because we haven't identified them. So we've been trying to, work with teachers to say, if you suspect that, let's follow up. When kids are in the building or when they're riding the buses, we can find them better sometimes.
Right.
So it's certainly been a challenge, but we're making headway. And I think that I feel like we're providing supports for those kids who we've identified, but I'm still concerned about the number of kids out there who aren't in school who haven't been identified.
I appreciate that, Mike, and thanks for bringing that up, because we see that overall in the state. Our number of McKinney Vento students for last year, for the 2020 year, was 13,631. That number is about 2,000 students less than what we would have expected from the previous year. So it's a considerable difference. And I know that there has been a huge challenge specifically in trying to locate and keep track of our McKinney Vento kids when all of this kind of hit the fan and everybody was, well, like Kid said, right? School's closed, so we don't need to do anything about it. So it's been a huge challenge. I have heard from some districts that now, as things have kind of been a little more settled, that we're starting to see some of those kids come back. But I love the idea of looking at the enrollment lists and the dropped lists and comparing them to the McKinney Vento list to see if any of our kids have been dropped from those enrollments. Has anybody else have done that, or has anybody had any experiences in regards to kind of the same experience that Mike has expressed, where he realizes that he's lost track of several kids and is trying to kind of find them and get them back?
I have a little bit of a situation with that. Not so much losing them and not being able to find them, but just getting our schools to communicate with me if a student is dropped from school. So if we have like our 10-day drop and all of a sudden I go to do grade checks and have no idea they've even been dropped. So it not so much, like I said, the same retrospect as Mike, but just trying to bridge that communication with my schools to say, hey, if it's a McKinney Vento student, you need to let me know, because they are oftentimes going to do that. And there's things we can do to prevent. I could reach out, I could be making contact, doing, giving support services that maybe would prevent them from leaving school. So I get a little frustrated with that, but that's what I
Yeah.
have.
Absolutely, Laura. And just a reminder for all of you, McKinney Vento kids should not be dropped from your enrollment list because of absentees. I know, I want to say it's 10 absences before they get dropped or something like that. Tends to be the norm. But that should not be happening for your McKinney Vento kids. So you should be aware of that and try to stay on top of that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things, is because I have made that case and said they cannot be dropped, but the schools have come back and said, well, technically they're just dropped from their enrollment in classes. We could re-enroll them anytime. So I'm kind of at that battle a little bit,
Yeah.
but I get it.
Does that happen automatically through your SIS system, or is that someone actually flagging and saying, okay, this kid has been gone?
It's up to our registrars to go in and remove them from the class. I've been trying to work with them to make sure that they understand, like, to please notify me, or counselors, like anybody, notify me. But they don't. So we're working. We're going to work, though. We're positive.
That's an ongoing thing, Laura. Don't feel bad. It's not just you, right?
Yeah,
So,
no, definitely.
it happens to all of us, right?
It does. It does. It happens across the board, and they're just trying to do their best, right? They're trying to follow what they think is best, and may not know about the exceptions concerning McKinney Vento. So just try to stay on top of that. I'm thinking that I might be able to help out in that regard with sending you guys something in regards to that you can share out with other people.
That would be great. I would appreciate it. And glad to know I'm not the only one. So
yeah,
no,
you're definitely not. So don't feel bad about that.
Okay.
Okay.
Jeff, real quick, I have a question while we're talking about dropping. So I'm from Davis School District. I've kind of talked to you a little bit about, that battle of dropping and everything. So our district has created like a ready and willing letter for McKinney Vento students. It doesn't identify like a drop date. It kind of references like, per McKinney Vento guidelines, we will not be dropping your student, but we are here ready and willing, like, let's get these kids back.
Yeah.
So I've moved to asking our schools to send those McKinney Vento ready and willing letters certified mail, so that we have proof of letter sent and proof of letter received.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Right. The problem we're having is our schools are worried that if we have students that are not attending, and then when they get audited, they're asked, why did you continue receiving funds for students that aren't attending? Like, what do we do in that instance? Do we just say, hey, look, here's the proof of all the emails, the texts, the outreach, the home visits, the ready and willing letter we sent? Like, we tried, but we couldn't drop them because they were McKinney Vento. I mean, how do we approach that?
So there are a couple of things that you should mention in regards to that. And the first is that under the law, they are protected. So the district is protected as well. You don't count a McKinney Vento student because they were McKinney Vento for a certain period of time. If they were identified during the academic year, they are McKinney Vento until the end of that academic year. So you count that student, you receive funds for those students, and it's legally acceptable to be able to continue to qualify that student as McKinney Vento until you know that there's something different in regards to that. So there's nothing that prevents that from happening.
Okay.
And you want to make sure that you kind of clarify that with anybody that comes to you with that question.
Okay.
But that's the first step. Okay.
Okay.
The second is another part of your role is to ensure that you're doing some training so that people understand the McKinney Vento laws and protections, because you are, in essence, the advocate. That's why you're called the liaison, because you are that student advocate. So anytime that there's an issue, you should be the person to say, hey, this is what the law states, this is what we do as a district, and so there's no issue with being able to keep this kid on the roll.
Right. And like at the beginning, I mean, I've only been in this position since last June. And in the beginning is that I literally had every single registrar, counselor, everything go through a training with me.
Fantastic.
And I never, ever, 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 are you ever allowed to drop a McKinney Vento student? So I really, really push that. So we've had a lot of schools being really good, reaching out to me and my coworkers saying, hey,
That's
we have a McKinney Vento or a McKinney Vento non-attender help. And so we've really made big progress on that end as far as making sure the schools are reaching out to us. It's just a matter of that one question of we're receiving the funds. We don't want to get into trouble for that. But I think what you said about, you know, it's legally acceptable as long as they're designated McKinney Vento, I think that will be super helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Does anybody else have any comments about that? Because I know you guys have some of those experiences all the time.
Hey, Jennifer, I would love to be able to have a copy of that letter that you've sent, if you don't mind emailing that to me, if you're willing to share.
Sure. If
I'll
do you
put my
want perfect. Go ahead. Put it in the chat. Thank you.
Thanks.
Jeff, this is Connie. I have a question about dual enrollment, because what happens out here is if I don't drop them, they end up dual enrolled somewhere else, because I have so many go through the road home shelter.
Yeah, I understand that.
That's my concern, is if I don't drop them, then they end up dual enrolled somewhere else.
Yeah, but you can't drop them unless you know that they are enrolled somewhere else, right? So if you, I mean,
lots of times we don't know because we don't get a request for records maybe for 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, again, the time span doesn't really matter, because once a student is identified, or you identify a student as McKinney, then you automatically are going to count that student counts for you for that year, regardless of how long they are McKinney. So it's not going to make a difference in that regard. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what I hear you're saying is if they're McKinney Vento, we shouldn't be doing. State says you drop them after 10 days of non-attendance, but we shouldn't be doing that.
That's right. Yeah, you should keep them until you can either identify that they're attending somewhere else, get them back in school, or well, I think those are the only two options, right? You either find them and know that they're attending somewhere else, or get them back in school. But the purpose for that is, again, it's to make sure that we can keep track of where they are and that they are going to school somewhere. Because, you know, our population, they know how to be invisible. Right? The goal is to keep an eye on them, to keep them in school. So I keep seeing messages pop up in regards to that letter. So I don't know, Jennifer, if you want to send that to me or Renee and we can get it out to everybody, that would be great. Okay. So did that help you, Connie? Did I answer your question? Okay, good.
Yeah. And when we talk about identification, I go out to the hotels quite a bit, and due to COVID, many of the students did not want to, you know, and we offer online, but they were really hesitant to enroll in school this year in my hotel population because their parents didn't want to end up quarantined and missing work.
Yeah, I understand that.
Repeatedly.
Yeah, we had a huge issue with people even wanting to be contacted because they didn't want to be sick or have their kids be sick, or have their kids bring a sickness back to the house. So yeah, I've heard I've heard a lot of stories from people that say, yeah, they completely shut their doors. They didn't want anybody coming in or out because they needed to go to work, and if they don't work, then they don't make that day's pay, and that means they don't make rent or they don't have to eat. So it's been really challenging for a lot of families and a lot of kids, because even though sometimes the kids have wanted to go out to go to school, their parents or guardians haven't let them because it's just not safe for them. So it is a really challenging time. It's been really tough. I've also heard that a lot of kids decided to sign up online for online school, like online high school or something like that, and then just completely disappeared. That is, they never attended, they enrolled, but they never are present in any of their courses or anything like that. So it's been a real challenge, and it's something that we're trying to get back to. And actually, one of the few conversations that I've had in regards to some of those funds, that $1 million fund that we're getting as part of ARP, is that I've repeatedly told during that conversation with those above me that the need for remediation for a lot of our kids coming back is absolutely necessary, like an early school boot camp, a month-long boot camp for them to kind of get back into school would be great. And then finding ways of engaging them is another critical need, because these kids have been out for a full year in some cases. So there has to be some way of getting them back and thinking about their own education again, getting them involved in school, because they are literally disenfranchised. So I hear you. Any other comments, suggestions about any of that? I can wait a little bit, no problems.
Jeff, I'm on that same line as far as using that new money.
Yeah.
Given that these families and kids don't want to leave their home, the security and stuff of their home, I'm wondering, in our district, we used to have what was called homebound teachers, and they would go to students' homes who, for whatever reason, just couldn't make it to school. Maybe it's a health issue or something like that, but
yeah,
you know, maybe we could fund teachers that actually went to, you know, students' homes and provided.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Mike. That I had a similar thought, and when I mentioned it, the conversation that ensued was, well, if kids aren't being sent to school because of COVID, and parents are worried about getting sick, having someone show up at their door could be something that they're scared of. I don't know how many families would actually like not let a teacher in. I don't think that would be the case in most cases. If somebody took the time to go to a family, most families, I would assume, would allow for them to come in, because it's, you know, just one or two people that are coming in, nothing major. But I really don't know. I do know though that the fear of being sick has been really, really strong for a lot of people during this time, and so I don't question that that wouldn't be effective. I wonder though how many of our families are so concerned that would be an issue where a teacher would show up at their door and they wouldn't let them in because of that. At the same time, though, I think now with vaccines going out, people getting them, and people being able to take care of things in that way, that we might see that letting up, and it's certainly something to look into. So I really appreciate you mentioning that to me, Mike. So what other kind of complications or issues have you guys seen come up because of just the lack of consistency in school, I guess, in some cases? I know some districts have been kind of off and on, or schools have been open and then closed and then open again. What are you guys seeing happening with some of your kids in those situations?
Well, again, at Consolidated Lake District, we were all out. Kids have the choice now. A lot of my McKinney kids are like, I'm just gonna stay online, and then I'm like, but then you got to do something, right? You got to do
Right.
whatever. I do have one like kid who had a horrible attendance like forever. She's had struggled with attendance for years. They've been in and out of the shelter, and I pulled her up the other day. Well, it's about a month and a half ago, and she has straight A's for the first 3 quarters. She's never missing. And I was like, this is awesome. She's like, I love this. I just get out of bed and get online. I'm like, you're my superstar, right? She's never had such good grades, but that's the minority, of course, not the majority. But for her, it's working so well. And she typically has a lot of drama at school, none of that. So it's been great for her, but that's not my experience for everybody. But there are those positives out there. For sure.
There are, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I have heard stories from just families personally, as well as from the field, from you guys, where that has happened also. That kids that were having a really hard time in the classroom are thriving, and it's been great for them. And then I've seen the reverse also a lot, where kids that were doing fantastic in school are now really struggling because they don't know how to get a handle on things in the same way. So it's been a real challenge in a lot of ways for everybody in regards to what's been happening. I appreciate you mentioning that, Mike, because that is important to remember, that there are some positives here as well.
The other thing that I've been telling kids is that this can be looked at as a golden window, right? For some of our kids who are behind, especially our high school kids and they're behind on credits, our schools are offering so many options to make up credit. And so I'm telling kids, even if it's not COVID related, let's take advantage of this opportunity and let's figure out how to get you caught up so that we're not behind, right?
Yeah.
Our schools, like I had a teacher today and she's like, if he'll just come this quarter, I'll give him credit for last quarter. And I'm like, there you go, right? So let's utilize this opportunity to our advantage when we can to help kids make up credits. We're using, we've got a partnership with Northridge, which again isn't ideal, but it's helping kids make up credits. We have a grade replacement program. We got all kinds of stuff happening right now that kids who are behind can get credits made up. And it's not perfect, but it keeps them on that track. And so I am pushing forward and like, let's just get you as many credits as we can.
That's fantastic, Mike. And I'm glad that you're looking at that, because the credits issue is definitely going to be exacerbated by what's going on. So to take advantage is really smart. I really, I'm glad to hear you say that. How about the rest of you guys? What are you guys seeing or doing, or think about what Mike just stated? Yeah, it's okay.
I'll just speak for Washington County. We've been in school the whole time, never closed a classroom down or school the whole year. Our numbers are way down, and to say what exactly it was for. I know we had lots of students go online. We had lots that went to homeschool. We had lots that just plain disappeared. We don't have a clue where they are, why they're not coming to school. And as far as me helping families and students, I actually think I've helped less because of all the government subsidies and everything. People have not been as stressed and haven't come in just pouring their hearts out. So I guess you take that as a positive. I don't know. I mean, they're not. You'd think with all the unemployment and everything that people would have to be forced to double up. I think they probably are, but it's not being reported if they are to me. But I have seen a little uptick in the last few weeks of kids coming back to school that maybe weren't throughout the year.
I see a lot of people shaking their heads, so it seems like everybody's kind of experiencing that now. Is that right? Okay. Well, fantastic. I'm glad that that's happening. So let's. I think I saw Jody raise her hand. Is that right?
Just a great news in Davis School District. We were able to, during this incredible pivoting experience this last year, open our first teen drop-in center for our students who are experiencing homelessness or inadequate or irregular or insufficient housing. It has a place for them to shower. It has a place for them to launder. It's connected to a mindfulness room. It also has a place for them to get all the wraparound services and guidance. We're ready to break ground on our one at Woods Cross High, and then we'll add one at Northridge as well as Layton High School in the next 18 months. So it's been a joint program between our schools and our foundation. And fortunately, I work for both. And so it has been the initiative our school foundation has taken on. We've raised more than probably $500,000. No, we're a little higher than that at this point. We're close to $1 million in raise during a pandemic just for this, not including everything else that we've been able to raise and write for to get these established. So they've already been used, and our students are coming in, and we're greatly concerned that there's going to be a bigger rise with this, with the eviction mandate being lifted. And on top of that, leases are becoming due. And because of the shortage of housing, our $700 to $800 apartments are now going up to $1,400. And there's nothing legally that you can't blame the apartment owners who haven't been paid, and they have bills and they need to do. And we know that there's going to be more students who don't have adequate laundry facilities. They have food pantries. Every one of these schools has a full-on community pantry associated with it. So we can take care of the food, the house, the wrap, the services, and try to get. The other big initiative we're working on in Davis County as a whole is getting a Youth Futures, or other words, I guess I shouldn't just put one title of which company would run it, but we need a teen shelter. We don't have one from one end of our county to the other for kids to lay their head at night. So the pandemic has heightened some of those things to us during this last year. Jen and Amy rock the planet when it comes to doing direct services, but it is really difficult on Friday. We don't like Fridays around here, as many of you don't, because you get those panic phone calls at 2 o'clock in the afternoon where a child isn't going to have a place for their head for the weekend. And so it's heightened our awareness as we began conversations with I'm sitting with the commissioners and the county homeless commission, having these discussions about there is a giant hole about teen homelessness. So we've been able to leverage those. So there's something good that came out of and how we've been able to provide services here.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Jody. Thank you for sharing all of that. Now, are the teen centers, are you planning to have those in each of the high schools, or?
Right now, my plan is 4, and then we will address, I've got schools whose pockets aren't as large. I still have homeless children who are experiencing homeless at them. So what our goal will be is to ensure that every one of the rest of the schools has somewhere for laundry. So maybe the foundation will be putting in stackables or ensuring that they have those, and they can work one-to-one. If you're dealing with 4 or 5 students, you can usually find a private showering space somewhere within the school, but laundering, making sure we assure that they all get hygiene kits, those type of things. So we'll put the 4 with the possibility of a 5th. And then my other high schools don't have the population numbers, but I have a feeling in this community, once the 4 go, we're going to be putting them everywhere, because they'll say, what about us? The idea of equity, equal access. But my time right now is where my highest concentration of students and usability would happen.
No, that's fantastic, Jody. It's a great way to.
It's a little bit of a foundation initiative. So if any of you have school foundations, you could have your director connect with me. I'm going to tell you, if you want to ignite your community, you want to engage them in a positive cause, when right now education has caused a lot of polarity. Maybe not in your counties, but in our county, we have some strong feelings about everything that has happened, both positive and negative. And positive and negative depends where you sit on it. This has been the one project we have worked on that has unified, brought together, and has allowed people to say how they could do something good at this time. So if your foundation directors need a hand or a lift or something, the foundation took the cause on, not the school district. But we work in tandem and right there with the school district in the planning. So maybe it'll be helpful to any of you.
Thank you for sharing all of that, Jody. Really, really appreciate it. And it's great to hear that is going on. I have, from my own seat, seen that it is a time where people are really wanting to help and support students in a homeless situation. They are, and by they I mean not only individuals but communities are really trying to see what's going on really with our homeless kids. So it is a great time to start getting more involved in seeking donations or seeking help in that way. I really encourage you to do that. I see that from my seat at the state office, where we have people coming and asking how they can help support students in situations like that. So yeah, don't keep quiet about it. Please let people know about it. At the same time, just a reminder that your part of your responsibility as the liaison at the district is to ensure that, or the LEA, sorry, not just districts, charter schools too, but that you remember to make sure that people are aware that they have rights under McKinney Vento. So there should be postings in schools that let students know that they have access to you or access to um, the information that you provide as a McKinney Vento liaison for community support, as well as within the school site itself. They should know that you are there to help support them. And for this purpose, NCHE or NACY, sorry, NEAHCY, creates posters that are available for you to post throughout different school sites in different areas. The law does require you to do so. So again, just a reminder that you should be making that information available to people. The law doesn't state exactly where it needs to be placed, except that it needs to be placed in a high visibility area where families and students have access to, and they can read it very clearly and easily. So again, if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to take some questions now. I know in the past we have requested some of those from the state as a state and then dispersed them out to you. Renee, do we still have you on the call? I'm not sure if she's still on or not. But in the
Yes, I
past,
was just muted.
oh, okay. So is that something that you might be able to look into for us, is getting some of those from NACY and then dispersing them out to
Absolutely.
everybody?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So look for that in the near future. We'll let you know about how that's coming along, and we'll get them to you. You may want to send, Renee, how do you want to do that? Do you want to have them send you just a short email saying how many they need or want?
That would work.
Okay. So why don't we do that then? Let's have you guys, each of you, just shoot Renee an email saying how many posters or flyers you'd like, and then she'll make sure that you get them. Sound good? I see a thumbs up. I see a few nods. And it's not just people nodding off either, so that's a good sign. All right. All right. So again, just a reminder of your duties as liaison. Those haven't changed. I mean, they're still the same. So I felt this meeting we wouldn't necessarily go through that whole training again, because I don't know that very many of you want to hear that. However, I do know that there are several of you that are new to your positions, whether that be just a few months new or this is your first year new and you started out in the fall. Some of you even a couple of weeks new. So I totally get that. Please feel free to reach out to me. I do want to meet with you. I do want to know what's going on with you, what your concerns are, and what you need to know. So I'm happy to schedule time to just meet with you one-on-one at any time. Again, just shoot me an email telling me you want to do that, and I'm happy to schedule something with you at your earliest convenience and mine. At the same time, at the start of all of this, we had an open kind of communication where I would just automatically come on to a platform like this every couple of weeks. And for many of you, I understand that that was really helpful and you felt like that was really supportive. So I was going to ask, I don't think that we necessarily need to do it every 2 weeks again, but how would you guys feel about having me kind of set some office time for you where I'm just available online and we can discuss anything that you want to discuss maybe once a month? Is that something that you guys are interested in having available to you? I know that's not for everybody, but I do know that some of you would benefit from that. I see several thumbs up, real thumbs, which is kind of nice. Okay, so Renee, can I ask you to kind of schedule that? And how about what days work best for everybody? Let me ask that first. And is it better in the mornings or in the afternoons? Because I know some people have really busy mornings, but their afternoons tend to be a little looser.
I would prefer in the afternoons. This is Hilda.
Okay, thank you, Hilda.
This is Connie. I prefer afternoons as well, as I'm at shelters in the morning.
Okay, fantastic. So I do see some thumbs up as well. So why don't we schedule that, Renee? If you could find one time a month, what days would work best for people? Fridays work. I'm gonna avoid Thursdays because for some reason everybody wants to have a meeting with me on Thursdays, and those are my busiest days every single week. But are there better days than or worse days for people? No,
Fridays work for me.
Fridays? Do Fridays seem to be okay? Yeah, we could call it schedule it maybe for a 1 o'clock meeting, and we'll say it's 3 hours long and we'll be done in 10 minutes. Start your weekends early. Yeah. Oh, I see people saying yeah. So why don't we do that? Let's do that.
Okay, got the
Thanks.
note.
Thank you, Renee. I appreciate it. I know that there were some weird issues with Teams in regards to this meeting, with cancellations and are you guys getting cancellation messages? Some of you did. I'm really sorry about that. I don't know what happened. We can't seem to figure out why people were getting so many cancellations and so many rescheduling. So we apologize for that.
Oh, it happened to others? Renee threw me under the bus like it was just me.
I did,
No,
didn't
Mike,
I?
it did happen to others, and it happened to other groups too. So, for instance, I had a migrant meeting this morning at 9 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, I got 4 calls from people saying, "Hey, why is our meeting canceled?" Because they got a cancellation this morning about it. So I don't know what's going on with Teams. This latest update clearly isn't working like it should. So we'll either get a working forum of Teams so that we make sure that doesn't happen, or we'll find another format, another way to make sure that we have our meetings so that you guys don't get those cancellations. I do apologize though, because I did have to reschedule this meeting a couple of times for today. So I'm sorry that happened. With all of this stuff going on with McKinney Vento, with the federal money, and then some other things going on just within the state, it's been an incredibly busy time for me because people want to know all of a sudden what's going on with McKinney Vento and homeless students. So I have been pulled left and right. Yesterday I had 9 meetings.
Oh.
And I didn't finish most of those because I was jumping from meeting to meeting. So it's just been ridiculous this past week in particular, but it's been like that for a while for me. So I apologize for all the confusion, guys, but I appreciate you sticking with me and sticking around. And yes, Mike, it wasn't just you.
Jeff, have you had any meetings with the new state homeless coordinator, Wayne Niederhauser?
I have not. I'm hoping to be able to do that soon, but I haven't had an opportunity to do that.
I know he's going to visit as many of the LHCCs as possible. I think we have a meeting with him possibly next week.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'll try to get in touch again, but if you do meet with him, just let him know that the State Board of Education is interested in working with him and having that conversation. Maybe he'll reach out to me and that'll be easier. Because I did write, but I haven't heard back. So
I'm on the Salt Lake Coalition to End Homelessness, and we met with him yesterday, and he talked about just how overwhelmed he is right now, and everybody wants to meet with him, right?
Yeah.
And so he did give us a name of who to schedule with, and it's in my office. I can send that to you, Jeff. But
Okay.
He said, just be patient. I'm trying to get around. Providers want to talk to me. Advocates want to talk to me. Everybody wants my time. He's like, it's just so limited. I'm only working, 12 hours a day, and so.
Yeah. And right now with with all that, with the big announcement of $800 million, right? Because that's what everybody heard and everybody hears. Everybody all of a sudden wants to know about McKinney Vento. Like, it's been crazy. I've had reporters from all over the United States calling me, trying to figure out numbers and trying to get information about homeless situations in the state. It's been really crazy. So I totally get where he's coming from. But if some of you see him, just let him know that I am interested in having conversations when he's available. And yeah, Mike, I'll take that contact info from you when you get it, or you get a chance.
Yeah.
Thanks. I also did want to let you guys know in regards to backpacks, like we have done in the past, we still plan on doing those. I know we heard from the company that does that for us. They're still wanting to do that, so we're going to be scheduling how to do that as we get closer to the fall. And Renee has always been a huge support in that, so thank you, Renee, for looking at that, and I'll ask you to do that again this year if you
Yeah,
can.
that was the question on my notes for you.
Oh, fantastic. So yeah, we definitely want to move in that direction again. Connie gave me contact to a person who also wants to be able to donate stuff to our kids in the state. I have emailed back and forth, but we haven't had a formal conversation about that. However, we are looking at that as well. They are, if I remember correctly, and I'm not mistaken, they are about literacy in books. So it would add additional books in literacy for our kids, and ideally we'd be able to get those to happen at the same time. So when you pick up the backpacks and all the stuff that's usually in them, you'll also get some additional books for you guys as well, and for your kids. But yeah, we're certainly looking at that also, and still want to go in that direction. Any other questions or comments about any of that or anything that's been said?
Jeff, can you explain the backpacks to me just a little bit? Because I'm not aware of those.
Sure, Laura. So in the past, what's happened is we've been working with a company that actually brings us a truckload of backpacks that are filled with hygiene kits as well as some literacy books. They've usually been mostly elementary, but they've also had some books in the secondary realm as well. But then what we do is we collect those. In the past, they've given us quite a few, about 800 different backpacks filled with the hygiene kits and the books. And then we disperse them to you guys based on your numbers and your need. So we have done that for how long now, Renee? Quite a few years, right?
Well, I've been doing it 15 years.
Yeah. So it happens on a yearly basis, and we plan on continuing that as well. I think last year was the first year we didn't in all that time because of what happened. Oh no, but we actually still got them.
We did do it just before we shut down.
That's right. Just before we shut down, we got those out. So I'm happy to. Yeah, that's right. So I'm glad that did happen. So we plan on continuing doing that. It's just we're waiting for the fall to kind of schedule that, and hopefully we have a place to be able to house them and then deliver them to you guys. Hopefully by then we'll be able to see each other face to face, because it's nice to see you on screens, but I really enjoy just having conversations with you guys, so it's fun, and I look forward to that again.
Jeff, I have a question for you.
Yeah, Jenny.
So you talked about numbers just a minute ago, about numbers of homeless students.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of articles written lately, and I think the numbers you have at the state office are different than the forms I have here.
So what have you heard?
Well, they're saying it's a 1,000, and I've got closer to 12 in my registration. So I just am wondering where my communication isn't getting to your office appropriately. What boxes am I not checking? What am I not sending appropriately? I want to make sure that the numbers you have down there are the same numbers that are in what we call Encore, that are in my records and the papers that I have. So how do I get that fixed?
Let's schedule a time to speak about your specific, but I do know that has been an issue in the past, and I have asked you guys about it, and you guys have sent me numbers, and we've tried to correct that from our side, but it might require us to keep looking into that, because everybody uses a different system, and so that might be causing some concern. Bear with me 1 second here. I'm pulling up a document to look at the counts that I have. Let's see.
I didn't mean for it to be just general about Davis. I want to know, is there a particular way I double check that you're getting everything? More for
Yeah.
the state meeting. I can work with you offline on Davis's, but I just wanted to make sure it's a item people are willing to discuss right now. So I want to make sure when they're calling to run stories or gain advocacy that they're not getting mixed messages between US Department, the Utah Department of Ed and the
Yeah.
district. That's all I
Yeah.
was looking more for, a generality than a
Oh,
specific.
gotcha. I see. Okay. So yeah, I do want to have that. I do want to have that conversation with you at some point. So let's look at a
Calling
time
it
to
on
do
your
that.
books, but I
Yeah.
was meaning in general, is there a way we're supposed to be touch pointing? Is there something you
Yeah.
could send us what you have in a spreadsheet and then we could
Yeah.
verify it or not verify it? Is that an
I-
easy way to do it?
Yeah, I can do that. So I just recently actually got a spreadsheet that showed LEA counts. So I can definitely send that to you guys so that you guys can double check and get back to me. There are going to be slight discrepancies in the numbers. I wish the numbers were as easy to count as 1, 2, 3 and 1, 2, 3, but we know that doesn't work that way, especially when we're talking about federal student numbers, because we look at there are duplicates, we look at issues in regards to student IDs and all of that. So it can become complicated, but the reality is that whatever you show is what we are supposed to be seeing, or very close to it, when we pull up our data system and pull your numbers through whatever SIS system you're working. Again, having said that, though, I know in the past there have been some issues with numbers, so I'm happy to verify that with you again, and that's actually something that hopefully this year we can do ongoing. Is just kind of go back and forth and look at our numbers to see that they're comparable. Again, they may not be the exact number, but they should be really close. So if we're seeing a discrepancy of 200 kids, that's going to be an issue. The other reporting that comes through is the state office won't report on numbers for last year because they haven't been verified yet. It usually is that the state board office numbers are 2 years behind. And that's the most recent number that we publish. Because of all the vetting and all the looking at the data and ensuring that students aren't doubled up and all of that. I don't mean doubled up in terms of where they're staying. I mean doubled is in terms of data points, that we're not counting them more than once, those kinds of things. So all of that takes our office a lot of time. And so that's why the numbers that we report generally out to the public are always about 2 years behind the current year. But having said that, we should have, again, a relatively close number for, say, last year. It should be pretty close. So if it's not, which it sounds like it isn't in this case, then it's definitely something we want to look at. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Overall, as I mentioned, we do have for our last year's count 13,681, I think was the number, of students. From 2017, that's down a significant number. That's down about 2,800 kids in difference. From last year, it's about 1,500 kids difference from the previous year. We don't think that we don't have homeless kids or that we have less. It's the identification issue that is the problem. And if anything, I believe, based on the conversations that I've had with many of you, that number is actually a lot higher than the 1,800 or the 2,000, even from 2017, because of what's been going on. We have lost a lot of kids because of the situation with COVID. Families have shut down. Kids didn't know where to go, and ended up really creating pools of homeless kids together, and then just not being willing to, or not having a place to go to school, or not being able to get online, or they are online and they have scheduled, but then they don't show up, right? They aren't there. So we know, also because of community data and community groups, that there's been an increase in the need for homeless support. So we know those numbers have increased. We just don't know what they are because we haven't been able to identify them, which is really sad. And one of the sad points of what we're trying to do here and trying to keep track of all of these students. So it is a lot of work. We do know that it's a lot of work for you guys as well. Even though many of you have leveraged out that work to be able to reach out longer than your own arms can extend, we still know that there's a need for that. And that's also a part of the conversation that I had when I was briefly asked about what some of the needs are, was that we need personnel because, you know, Jody, you're only one person, and trying to keep track of 1,200 kids is a handful, to say the least, right? If that were the only thing that you did, it would be difficult. But imagine with all the other things on your plate, it's just impossible. There's just no way. And many of you, even in smaller districts, are in the same situation. So that was a conversation that I did have with them as well.
So I'll echo what you said, but I'll give everybody an idea. Or maybe share with you something you could go back and ask for. We have a Davis Connect, our own online school, and it grew to 6,000, and we have more than 200 and some odd of our homeless students who enrolled in an online school. Knowing that personnel was of the utmost important, I went to our board of directors in our foundation and asked for $5,000 to pay for a tracker or an advocate who works right alongside of our counselors on our online school, just with our students who are homeless. So they still make the plan, they still do their counseling services that are then, but they reach out then to our team to say, here are the kids we haven't had contact with, that's what their plan is. Can you figure out why we haven't had them tap in? So if it's helpful, I guess I share this with you because I wear two different hats. As the foundation director seeing this, I went to our children in crisis dollars that I raise and advocated for a staffing part-time only through COVID to find these kids and make sure our seniors got graduated, and more importantly, that we knew where all of our kids were during this time. So maybe that will be helpful with the online. I know our schools have been tasked really hard with our kids who are in school or present in the traditional sense, but we had a large migration to online in Davis, and I saw this, and our team was quite concerned about it. So an idea for all of you might be to petition your foundations for some work in the homeless department. I don't know what your foundations do, so I'm not committing their dollars, and I'll probably get some great emails back after I've said this. But it's a great charge for me to say, this is an area that foundations can raise for right now. And we've been able to do it. So I allocated some of our Help Kids in Crisis. That's what our dollars were raised under the purview of. The only way I can help them is if I can find them. And the only way I can find them is if I have a human being out there making a connection with them. So I made the case to the board, and we made a hire for a part-time position. It was like 14 an hour. It was less than even a $5,000 commitment. So idea for you. Don't mean to overwhelm the meeting, but felt very much like you did, Jeff. And I'm lucky I can't say I'm the one person. I have two people in our office whose entire job is focused on the 1,200 kids. But I'll give the credit to them. But we did hire an additional hours to do that this year. Anyway, that might be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And these meetings only get richer because of the things that you guys share and are experiencing. Even when it's a question, it can be really helpful for all of us. So I appreciate you sharing. There is another point that I wanted to bring up aside from some of the things that we've discussed, and that is that the state of Utah, that is the State Board of Education, worked very closely with Laura, actually, Laura Burdine and Tuella, to put together a memo of understanding with one of our community groups. Laura, do you want to just briefly talk about that?
Sure. You talking about with the HIMSS program?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
okay. Yeah, so we did work really hard to get with the Utah HIMSS program. Jeff and Mike Carman and myself jumped on, and we were able to get the state of Utah to allow all McKinney Vento liaisons throughout the entire state, both public and charter schools, access to HIMSS. So we can actually go on and be able to see some of the families and people that are being serviced as an additional form of outreach. And there's no input, it's read-only access, but I was very excited because that is a piece to my puzzle that I have personally been missing. So I'm grateful for the time and the opportunity. I've yet to see anything, so Jeff, you'll have to kind of catch us up on where we're at with that. But yeah, I'm super stoked. I think it's going to be great. And one of the things too is that we'll be going to our I cannot even think of the name, of course, because I'm on the spot, but one of the meetings in addition to the LHCC meetings to be able to discuss and kind of see, you know, those families and where we're getting the help that they need. So, yeah.
So I see a question come up. I want to make sure everyone understands. So HMIS is a database, a system database. It's an online database that actually the health department uses in order to keep track of services being provided to families, community services, whether that's mental health services or services to support the family in homelessness as well. That system is generally used outside of education. Okay, what we wanted to do was make sure that any family that was there, that you had access to, that is, so that you could know what services that family was getting, and then either be able to support them in something that they aren't receiving, or just being able to be aware of what that family might be going through. What that means is that you, as a user, will be able to get online. You'll be able to sign in, log into the system, and you won't be able to just blanket search for anybody that you like. You will need to have a student's information, basic information, to be able to pull up any history that they have in regards to any services that they've received. And that might get you a better picture of what that student is going through or what that family is going through, so that you can help provide supports for them. Okay? You aren't able to change any data. You aren't able to add any data. As Laura said, it is only a view that you have. You're able to log in and look up an individual student, be able to look up their information. But other than that, the system is closed to you, so you can't make any changes, can't make any decisions in the system about what that family or that student is going through. That doesn't mean that all of you have to use the system. Okay, I want to make sure that that's very clear to you. You guys have a ton going on. We wanted to make sure that it was as easy and effortless for you if you did want to use it. That's why it's read-only access. You can't make any changes or additions. But we felt that in some communities, having access to that information would be really helpful to you. So that contract is now signed. They've received the MOU from the not from the U.S. Department, from the State Board of Education. There are only a few things now for us to be able to schedule a training, so that will be coming to you. Look out for information about that. And then once we get you through the training, you'll be able to use it to your heart's content as often as you like, or not. And again, we didn't want it to be a burden for you. It's not something that you have to do, but it is something that is available to you if you've found yourself in a situation where you needed to know more about what might be going on with a family or a student. So we're happy to have had that happen in the way that did. And I appreciate Laura and Mike being a part of those conversations, because what you shared during that time was really really helpful in ensuring that we got the right kind of access for you guys instead of it being a burden and an additional thing that you guys had to do. So we appreciate that very much as well. Okay. Any other questions about that? No? Again, look for some information that in the near future as we schedule a training for that. We will make sure that that gets to you and it's very clear. And hopefully we'll have a system that doesn't cancel out meeting dates automatically for some random reason. All right. Well, I think I've taken up enough of your time today. Hopefully I've given you some information that's helpful. We've talked about things that other districts are doing, and I appreciate you guys sharing what's going on with you. I will stay on for a little while longer in case anybody wants to talk to me directly or has any questions for me. I'm happy to have those conversations with you. But if there's nothing else, I will let you go. Any questions for me before we adjourn?
Good to see you all. Have a great day. I'm out.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks,
It's
everybody.
great to
Thank
see you
you.
guys. And hopefully we'll see you all in real life soon.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you.
I'm out too. This is
Bye.
Hilda.
Thank you.